Where a Migori court has ordered the exhumation of the body of a police officer who died at and was hurriedly buried inside a church in Rongo, suspected to harbor cultic activities. The order arose from a dispute between the late Dan Ayo Obura's parents, who want him buried at his home in Kano, and the officer's widow, who insists on keeping the burial site inside the church compound. Bernardo Juang reports that the widow is now heading back to the Court of Appeal to appeal the order.
After months of a fierce court battle, the family of the late GSU officer Dan Ayo Obura has finally got their wish. The dispute arose when Ayo was buried secretly inside the St. Joseph Messiah of Africa Church in Rongo, hours after his death on his widow's instruction, sparking a desperate plea from his extended family to exhume his body.
Dan Ayo Obura, being a Luo, working with the General Service.
Rongo Principal Magistrate Crispin Oruo has now made a ruling which aligns with the Luo customs and tradition in favor of the late officer's parents, but against his widow who wants his body left where it is.
Not saying that the place that the deceased Dan Ayo Obura, a Luo male, ought to have been buried at his father's homestead located in Kochieng, Nyando Sub-County, Kisumu County, and not just St. Joseph's Missions Church, where his remains were interred. That an order is hereby issued for exhumation of the body of the deceased Dan Ayo Obura from the second defendant's church premises situated in East Kamagambo under the supervision of the public health officer. 2, that an order is hereby issued that the first defendant, that is the wife to the deceased, to identify the specific location, the word here is specific location, where the remains of the deceased Dan Ayo Obura were interred.
Magistrate Oruo's order has since been disputed by the officer's widow and the church, who insist on keeping his remains interred inside the church compound.
I'm not satisfied with the judgment, so as our lawyer said, we'll proceed to High Court.
Well, we are going to move to the court as fast as possible, because being that there is already a pronouncement that has been made by the court, we expect that the family members, through the father, are likely to move with speed anytime to implement the decree of the court that has been pronounced this morning. And for that reason, we also have to move with speed so that we arrest or stay the implementation of that decree.
However, the family of the late officer welcomed the ruling with open arms, expressing their gratitude for finally finding justice and closure.
Alikufa ghafla kama tu kujua na amesekwa kama tu kujua. Tunarudishia Mungu asanti, kumbe Mungu iko na uwezo, naweza fanya kila kitu ile ambao ajulikani, na Mungu naweza kufanya.
Kama tungekuwa na uwezo ya kutosha tungeenda naye leo, na vile tu uwezo ni kidogo, tutaenda kujipanga jinsi ambapo tunaweza rudi kuchukua hiyo mwili.
The Honorable Magistrate took into consideration the Luo customs. He also took into consideration the police burial rights, and I also believe that he also considered the Public Health Act, which also deals with the disposal of bodies within the Republic.
They are now making preparation to exhume his body and give him a dignified burial at his home in Kano. Bernard Ojuang, NTV.
Well, just a correction on that story by Bernardo Juang. I had earlier said that the widow intends to go to the Court of Appeal to appeal the decision, but this ruling came from the Magistrates Court. Now she will be headed to the High Court. Now, moving on.